Closest one to you that you should call upon be South Petherton.
I do understand that, and I've seen that,
Yeah.
but the latest thing, we've had a consultant involved in this. The latest thing, we got a document which is 100 pages long, and I'm a bit averse to sending that out to the public. Half of them won't read it anyway, so I need to work out how to do a summary of that, really. Quite difficult.
Yes, we didn't do a summary. We just put the whole lot online and sent a one page flyer out to everybody.
Yeah,
I also had about 300 people on an email list who have been interested in the process of setting it up. So they just we sent it to them. Almost all the communications have been electronic. It hasn't been printing out the plan at all. We've only had to print out 3 copies of it, which one went in the library and one went in the parish council office, and I don't know what happened to the other one.
Well, we spent a lot of money and a lot of time, about not far off 3 years, working with this with a group of about 8 people, and it's now got to the stage where, first of all, it's like herding cats. So I'm chair of this committee, and it is like herding cats, I can assure you that, because nobody agrees. Talking about the whole thing, it's really quite difficult. Going through a difficult phase at the moment, anyway, put it that way.
Yeah, ours is at the regulation 16 stage. It's been dealt with by Sedgemoor, and the responses are back. And at the moment, we're waiting for Sedgemoor District to appoint an inspector. What we were told is that any referendum wouldn't take place until 2021.
That's what I understood as well. But the main thing is that we've got to get. I mean, we've done all sorts of. Spent a lot of money on getting ACOM reports and the whole thing. But it's this document that's going to go to the public, which I don't think is suitable to get an opinion from 6,000 people or whatever it is, and you'll only get about 10 answers, I expect. But the whole point is, it's just wasting our time, I think, at the moment.
Who puts the document together? Because in our case, Sedgemoor actually run the referendum. We have nothing to do with it.
We had appointed a consultant who's been working with us for the last 2 years or 18 months, nearly 2 years, and has produced this large document, which is various stages. We split ourselves into 4 different groups with different aspects, but it's just got very heavy.
It's a bit like Topsy. The longer you go at it, the more it gets.
Yeah.
Basically, we started out with a group, and then we had if you like, an expert who was guiding us. But the basics of the plan have been down to the vice chairman, who has done most of the work. And as I say, ours is now finished, apart from going to the inspector or assessor, whatever they call it.
Right. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Could I just drop in and say, let's get started, if you will, please, because I'm conscious of other things to do. Welcome to the first clinic for the Parish Online User Group in Somerset. I was trying to find out earlier if we are the first user group for Parish Online, but I was told by the manufacturers that we're actually just the best. So we'll sit with that instead. By and large, those districts or unitaries that have agreed to purchase the licenses for all their parishes because they find that is the most cost-effective and efficient way to go, they run their own user forums. And as we haven't persuaded South Somerset or even Somerset to do that yet, we're still working on, that'll be one of the outcomes, I hope, of the user group. But anyway, welcome to the group. I'm well aware that we have a wide variety of experiences and expertise on Parish Online on hand. So we're going to have all sorts of queries, I suspect, from people who are brand new and from those who have known it for some time and wish it would do something else. But the point is to try and find that out. So I apologize that I'm going to be turning to another screen quite frequently just to check what the next item is on the agenda, because my printer has died. Sorry, Death. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is to introduce you to the user group. So let me just share my screen a little. So the first thing you should see is yourselves. And then we'll see if we can switch it to something else. So there is a website which is so new it's still steaming, that you're invited to go to as members of the Parish Online user group. And a couple of preliminaries. I should have mentioned that I've started recording this session because several people have said they can't arrive today, but they would like to see the session later. And the second is that unless anyone objects violently, I'm going to put everybody who's here today as a member of the user group because it makes me feel much better. But if you'd rather not be a member, please, by all means, write a scathing email to me afterwards. So let me just move this so that you can see what's on the screen. It's a very simple website, but what it tries to do is to tell you, hello, who we are. I hope everyone's seeing this, but it basically tells you who we are, what we try to do, how we set up clinics, which is usually at the request of anybody who asks for one. Then there is what I hope is going to be a really useful page is the tips and recordings. What that shows at the moment is just a link to the Parish Online video tutorials because I think they happen to be really good. There's the last one that I did, which I happened to put up as a contrast, so you can see the difference between really good and really not so. And then there's a useful contact document, which I hope will extend each time we use this system because it'll get longer and full of more useful tips. And I've just been told that the get in touch button at the bottom here doesn't work, but I can assure you that the contact button does. And also in the who we are, there's an email link to my email address, which also works. So that's just to let you know that the user group has some sort of a footing on the internet, and I hope that this will become a much beloved and used site for everybody and useful. Second item on the agenda is, okay, I then thought I'd sort of whet everyone's appetite by showing a reasonably new feature which has arrived, which is in fact for people like Andrew, a repetition of an old feature, which is the ability to publish a page from Parish Online on the internet. So if you have a local village website, then you can export either a link or the actual coding for a page like this. And I've just given you this as an example because it's something that applies right now to Long Sutton. We are putting in or installing, building, whatever you want to call it, a village shop today. Or actually this week. It's going to be done on Friday, but this week we're doing preparations for it. So we've had to note that the school is here, and generally the car park gets full of teachers' cars, parents' cars, and so forth. And we've had to tell them that they can't come here because this is where the bulldozers and the excavators and generally things fairly lethal to children will be. So we've sort of given them a route where they can go, given them a walking route into and out of school. The school has got COVID-19 rules in effect, so you cannot go as a parent beyond the school gate. There's a note here to say keep clear of this area during this week, where the disabled parking is going to be for those who are less able, and the regular parking is going to be. So I just thought that was an example of the sorts of things that you can do with Parish Online for those of you who feel a need. And there was a huge learning curve for me in this, where I discovered that putting labels on things is very good for things like the village shop, where the label is going to stick right next door to it. But when you have something as long as disabled parking from the shop or so forth, that doesn't work. You can't separate labels from the items that they're linked to. So this was just another example to people of layering at work. So I had one layer that showed basically the geography, another layer that showed the school routes in and out of school, and then a third layer with all these, essentially what are labels, but in point of fact, they're just points with long names, and then the names come up, and I put a halo effect around them so that they stand out clearly on the picture. But I just thought that might be an example to people of the sorts of things you can do if you're brand new to the system, like I am, and you find that the hotline between you and Geosphere gets quite busy, whereas I'm swearing at them, why doesn't the bloody thing work the way it's supposed to? And they come back and say, because you haven't read the book properly. You'd do much better if you did. Anyway, I just thought that I'd whet your interest with that, because it's called Public Web as a feature. I think it's in beta test at the moment, so I'm not sure that everyone has it. You'll be able to get to it by clicking on the administration button in the top right corner of your Parish Online site, and I think it's fabulous. So I just mentioned that to keep people interested. Next item was really going to be a question for everybody, because I myself am a parish councillor, but I don't spend much time in doing all the nitty-gritty work that's done by the parish clerk. And I thought that it would be worth asking what it is that people would find would help if they had computer assistance, because I think that the way I see Parish Online is got the capabilities of being the single source for everything that parish clerks have to do. So you can store data in it, you can keep records, you can see the geography, most of the things that, as far as I know, are of interest to a parish clerk. But I thought it much better to ask you as the audience if you think there are things that you wish could be done, or you could tell me what it is that takes most of your time and whether or not it's computerizable. Just those sorts of things as an average conversation. So if anyone would like to tell me, please go ahead or talk. So none of you does anything?
I've been, hi, this is Greg Jones, Compton Dundon. I've been basically working over the last 3 months just to get all of our asset register onto it as a piece of work, because currently it was just in a spreadsheet and nobody really knew where it was. We all had a good idea, but when you get to the meeting, of course, half the councillors can't remember where half the stuff in the village is. So I've got it on, and we use Parish Online now at every parish council meeting because we're doing it online. Therefore, we have it up on the screen and we can whiz around the village and say, this is where we're talking about. But it works really well.
Fabulous. That's how I envisage things will be happening in Long Sutton, but I got to really twist Lisa's arm to get her to do it.
Yeah, the clerk can't actually do the whizzing around. You need somebody else to do that while the clerk is clerking the meeting. So effectively that falls upon me, who's just a parish councillor. So the chair chairs, the clerk clerks, and another does the driving of because not only are you doing that, you're also displaying papers and things like that for the meeting. And you can't expect the clerk to take minutes and do all that work.
Well, there you are. I stand corrected. That's a great piece of information. Thank you. Anybody else, please?
Andrew from Martock, we are doing what's called a phase 1 mapping of our environment for Ash and Martock parishes. And we're using Parish Online for that. Although I'm not a member of the parish council, nor is the person who's doing it for Ash. So we're working for the parish council rather than as the parish council. But we hope that eventually we'll have a complete map of the two parishes showing important environmental, natural environmental aspects of it.
Do you find, Andrew, you and I talked about this a couple of months ago, do you find that other environmental groups are interested in the facilities that you have in Parish Online, or do they have their own version of something?
We haven't yet got as far as that. It's just so happens that because I used it for making as a basis for the neighbourhood planning and making all the maps, and because my colleague I'm working with in Ash has also done a similar thing, we joined together. We've only just started it, and so it's not really very public yet.
Okay. Does anyone else have a point to raise, please?
Graham, sorry, could you put gallery view back on so that we can see each other, because I can only see 4 people at once at the moment.
And yes, I can go back to that.
All right. I wanted to say that I'm the deputy clerk, and it's one of our councillors who's been using Parish Online for the neighbourhood plan. But then my boss asked me if I could experiment with it and get some information up for him, and I fell at the first hurdle. So I know nothing other than I'm being asked for a PSGA number, and I don't know where to get that from, and the guy that signed us up doesn't know anything about it either. Without it, I don't think that I can access some of the information that everybody else can, because when I had a look at some YouTube help videos, the first thing that you can see is not the first thing I can see. And my options are not the same down the left-hand side as I was seeing in the YouTube clip. So does it mean, I'm assuming it doesn't, it means I can't access ordnance survey information
The
and addresses?
The PSGA code you're being asked for, Natalie, is something that you can apply for freely. You get it in less than 24 hours. The address is on the contact sheet that I showed you on our user group site. But right. I think it's something as simple as psga.co.uk or .gov.uk maybe. It's a government.
Am I right in thinking that because I don't have that number, I'm not able to access the same level of information or
yes,
detail?
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Right. As soon as you get that, you'll be able to enter it into the system and it'll give you all the mapping information.
It was asking for me to find addresses in a particular location, like in a sort of radius out from a particular building, so that he could write to residents who were in that radius. And that was, I just could not for the life of me see how to do that. And I'm assuming
you need that PSGA code and everything else falls into place from that.
Surely sorry for butting in here, but having been through this with our parish council, surely once you have the code for the council, it's up to the system administrator to set up the other users. And the reason why you're not getting access is because you haven't been authorized as a user on the system.
Right. I mean, thank you for that, Greg. The chap who set it up said that, I mean, he didn't know anything about a PSGA number either, and
because you would have done that when you first registered, because you wouldn't be able to, nobody would be able to get onto Parish Online without that number.
Right.
Within your parish.
I did go back to him and say, you know, what's this about this number? Do you know anything about it? And he said that he sent me the email that he'd received back from Parish Online when he had registered, and there was nothing in it about that. So, but it all makes sense now. I suspected that's what I needed, and now I know for sure.
Can he see that information or not?
Can I see it at the moment?
Can he see it, the person who set you up?
No, I don't think so. He's been using it for something quite different. And I didn't feel at the time, he was up to his eyeballs and stuff, and I didn't feel I could ask him if he could have a look for me. It was just a step too far.
Do you know who the administrator is for the account?
Well, I think it must be him, because he's the one that set it up in the first place.
Yeah, so he'd be able to give you access, because after our last meeting, I was able to give Mark access to our account.
Right.
So
okay, I'll go back to him and I'll be a bit firmer with him.
I think it would help if you could ask him to make you an administrator, Natalie, because that gives you all the rights to the system.
Okay.
And you're not going to do any much damage, I think, to any work that he's done.
Cool. Thank you.
Right. The next item on the agenda was allotments, and this arose again out of some work that I've been doing at Long Sutton. So let me share the screen again. And what you have here is the parish online for Long Sutton switched on with the land category in the asset register turned on, and we've put in the 2 sets of allotments that we have. And if you click on any one allotment, it's going to tell you what it is. And basically, the point of my question is, these are the fixed fields that you get for something in the asset register, which you're not able to make changes to, but I felt that we probably would want to have changes to, and probably it would be of interest on a national basis if we could get people to agree on what is needed. So I've used the fields that they did give us in a rather freehand way. So I've mentioned, for instance, what the rate is per year for the lease on the land and what that equates to in a cost per acre. And then the date purchased is, I've taken it as the date of the tenant's lease. But I figured it would be useful, particularly as this is in the asset register, to have the date purchased as far as the council was concerned when it bought the land in the first place. I think it'd be very interesting to know for how long any lease on any part of the allotment is running at the moment. I thought it'd be useful if there was a status field that said that a particular plot is available or already taken. And for those of you who are whiz kids in Parish Online, you know that that can automatically change color depending upon what status you give. So if, for instance, you make all the taken plots red and the available plots green, they will show up as red and green on your map, which is presumably what people want. So I didn't know if anyone around here is using the allotments part of Parish Online, but my question really was, what would people like to see if they were to start using it? And I put a list in the agenda, I think, of the sorts of fields that I think would be useful, but that's just one thought. Are there any others, please? And I'll go back to the main screen so you can all start talking at once. Nobody has any views on allotments?
Well,
in Glastonbury, we have 2 large allotment sites in Glastonbury. One's managed by the town council. One of the areas that I feel could benefit for Parish Online is noting where there is correspondence that's taking place between allotment holders. Sometimes we have reason to remonstrate with the allotment holder for, I don't know, things like feeding the birds, which we aren't asked not to do with bird feeders because it attracts the rats, or I don't know what another one may be. There's somebody whose allotment has not been kept to the standard of which we would expect, and we try and encourage them to come forward and tidy it up a bit. So having a link there to correspondence would be helpful.
How about you just add the correspondence as an attachment to each particular lot, each relevant lot?
Yeah, I guess I could. I haven't explored that bit yet.
Okay. For those, again, in passing, I think we've got quite a lot of this today. I have asked Geosphere if they would consider putting a reader into the system so that when you click on an attachment, it immediately comes up in the right format, as opposed to at the moment it downloads and then you've got to double click on the download and view it that way. So they have said that they will be looking at doing that in the future. So I just think that if people get into the habit of attaching documents to the relevant entry, then everything will be readily viewable in the future by anybody else, which is, I think, what you're looking for, isn't it? It's Mark.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it.
If you do that, so if you've got correspondence that's linked to a particular plot, what happens when that plot then changes hands? So somebody else takes over that plot, you'll have potentially somebody else's correspondence linked to somebody else's plot. So under a GDPR, somehow you're going to have to be able to maintain and delete those documents. And I don't know.
You're absolutely right, Mark. And I did ask Geosphere about this because underlying the whole of Parish Online is a database. And I've asked them, will they consider archiving the stuff that no longer applies? But you're quite right. There's something I need to make as a specific point.
Yeah, I'm just sort of concerned that if you start saving documents to Parish Online, I don't know how easy it is to search and do housekeeping on the documents to make sure that you get rid of documents. So, you know, if you had information on somebody that had a plot on the allotments, and you know that was 10 years ago, for example, you shouldn't have that data anymore. I don't know how you can go through and delete that data.
Okay, great points. I've made a note. Thank you. One for Greg, please.
Yeah, just a thought on that. You'd actually need to be able to allocate a person to the allotment and then attach the correspondence to that person, because then when that person is no longer the tenant, you archive the person and all his correspondence goes with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it sounds as if it's just an insuperable issue.
Yeah.
So any other points on allotments, please? Okay, just in passing, I noticed that there's an organization called the National Association of Allotments, and they have a very interesting number on their website which says the average income from each allotment is cheerfully measured in rods on their system, but then they told us what the equivalent is per acre. And in Long Sutton, we're currently earning £85 an acre. And if you do, because the fields are not used as allotments, they're used as agricultural fields. But if you have an allotment, then you can expect something in the order of £1,500 per acre. So it's well worth having allotments if people want them, because you can obviously provide a sizable income to the village. And incidentally, if all of the acreage that we currently have allocated to allotments were earning at that rate, then that would be the entire budget for the entire year for the village. So it's a sizable number. Anyway, moving on. Okay, we've now reached the point where if anybody would like to have a training session, this is the point. Now, Gerard has very kindly offered to show those people who are interested how Glastonbury is using Parish Online. And if everybody would like to use that, then I'll just hand over to Gerard. But if there are others who would rather have something different, then we can create a breakout room or two and operate accordingly. Are there anybody who does not want to see what Gerard's got to offer?
Don't get too excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited because the thunder has started in Milbourne Port.
I'm happy with that suggestion because, as I say, I'm on a steep learning curve. So.
Okay, well let's.
I'm happy to see Glastonbury. Yeah.
Let's see if I can give control to you, Gerard, so you can share your screen.
Okay, thank you. So while Graham's doing that, I've had Parish Online here in Glastonbury for a couple of years. It's one of those things I keep picking up and putting down, always too busy, but when you do need it, you have to keep reminding yourself how to access it and use it. But what I've done today for this is just pulled about 12 different documents out that I've used that use the process for. Some are with points, some are with polygons, some are with you know, shaded areas, whatever else. But that's what I've done. If I got the shared screen now, Graham.
Not yet.
Okay.
This is one of the things that I should have practiced beforehand, but didn't. Does anyone happen to know in Zoom where I can offer the screen to the share to somebody else?
Graham, you could transfer the host to Gerard.
Yeah, and that's what I'm looking for the menu to do that on.
It's the three dots. 3 dots at the top.
3
right.
dots at the top.
The top of the picture.
Of his window.
Gerard's picture.
Yeah. One thing I don't have is 3 dots. Oh, no, that's a speaker view. Let's see.
You can do it within the, if you open up the chat, sorry, the participants.
Yeah.
And then you can go down to Gerard in the participants, then you should see the option to make host.
I can mute him, I can moor him, I can make him a host. Right, brilliant, thank you. Gerard, you're now the host.
Right, I'm going to go share screen and see if I can pick up on. Bear with me. Bear with me. I'm trying to find PowerPoint. Nearly there. Nearly there. Right, come on, up we come. PowerPoint's coming. Come. And there you are, that one. Oh, not that one.
That from my screen.
Okay, full screen. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to fly through a few screens, guys. You'll be familiar with this. This is, if I'm speaking down to folk, then I'll apologise, but the boundaries of the parish, or in our case, the town, are identified with the blue line around the outside. That has proved quite helpful, particularly when you're reporting fly tipping or unauthorised encampments or something along those lines to the district council, because you're very clear where your boundary is. But if you're not familiar with it, that's the blue line of a boundary, and as you might recognise, that's Glastonbury in all its glory. What I've used Parish Online for is a number of things. The black line that you're seeing there is one that I've added, and that's the development boundary for Glastonbury, and that's based off of the local plan from 2012 or 14, whatever it was. And then I added, but if I was on Parish Online on the system, I could keep layering and showing you the layers. But the red are areas that have been through the SHLA and the call for sites were permitted as development land, but were outside of the development limits. And interestingly, both of those, or all three of those sites, have now been included in the consultation for the refresh of the local plan. But that again is quite helpful when you're at a planning meeting and councillors are discussing the whys and wherefores of a particular application and whether it is or isn't in the development limit. I can show them. It's quite helpful. So that's that one. Breaking it down a little bit closer and tighter, the yellow, and I've hidden with the pictures there what the index there, the legend, but the yellow are industrial sites in Glastonbury that within the local plan, if a residential application came forward, then the district council would be leaning towards approving the application because it's industrial sites within the development limits. So again, it's so clear. And Greg, you mentioned at your parish council, you can put things on a screen. You put this on a screen when you're having this discussion at a council meeting. All the ambiguity, all the guessing, all that wondering goes out of it. It's very clear. I nearly said black and white. In this case, it's red and yellow and black. But and I'm being facetious now, but it is of great importance to things we've done. And that's the same, just another area in Glastonbury. And that's, if you know, it's the car wash site right on Street Road. But it just shows that the sites very quickly on again. And I've used this for the purposes of trying to resolve some of our issues with the travelling or the unauthorised encampments in Glastonbury. And the legend I'll share with you that the blue is sites that have been previously used for industrial use but aren't currently. So that would be the Beckery building and the Bailey's building, etc. And then the yellow are sites where residential has been applied for before, been unsuccessful. And then the mauve or purple was a site that I added because it's outside development limits. You'll see the others are within, but that's a site the county council owned. They were possibly bringing forward as a consideration for a traveller's site. Again, that picture, as I've explained it in about 20 seconds, it just takes any guesswork out of what you're trying to relay at a town council meeting. Councillors can focus on the very specifics. So again, it paints 1,000 words very quickly. Graham, I am flying through this, but I hope this is okay what you're asking.
This is exactly what everyone's been saying.
So this is the completely different tangent now. This is the conservation area of Glastonbury. The blue line is now. That's one that I've added. Glastonbury, as you would expect, has an enormous amount of history and sacred sites, and the conservation is a big part of it. But very interestingly, the conservation area was expanded in about 2011, and the red lines are the new conservation area, as opposed to the blue, which is the old. And very often we'll have a planning application that comes in where an applicant within the red line hasn't recognised or doesn't recognise themselves as being within the conservation area. And you know, again, that is quite helpful. Now I can't home in on this one very much more now because I've got it on a PowerPoint. But if you're on a screen in a meeting and you really wanted to home in on Benedict Street or the High Street or wherever, you can get that right down to 1 in about 200 and point out as a ratio and point out exactly where the lines are. And it just proves to be very helpful. It takes the guesswork out of decision making, or discussions, which is always helpful. And this one is something I did for our parish plan in Glastonbury, is that I mapped all of the areas which were with the green space. And some of them are green space which are managed by ourselves. Some of them are sacred green space. Some of it is green space that we would like to, or areas we would like to bring forward for consideration. And again, that story tells quite a number of a certain amount of dialogue as to what we're trying to achieve there. The green is, if you're interested, green is historic sites. That's the Abbey, the Tor, Weariall Hill, etc., and Bride's Mound. And the cemetery is the most northerly one there. And then the blue are sites that could be considered for open green space. And the yellow is sites that have been applied for in the past and are being given consideration within the local plan. So again, just things I've used it for. And they say a picture tells 1,000 words. And I think I'm hopefully demonstrating that that's the case here.
Can I interrupt a minute, Jared?
Yeah, please do.
Did you add that to that map, or were they already there?
No, I added it to it. So it's once you've learned how to do it, it's not particularly difficult. No. What I've been sharing with you up to this point is the polygon, as they call it, the area. As you're seeing by my cursor, that's the defined area. The next one I'm going to show you is where you can put dots on a map. And wrong way, that one. The dots on a map. This is where we've created a cycle and walking trail from the centre of Glastonbury right out to the Avalon Marshes. And I wanted it signed. It's within the conservation area. So I had to submit a planning application to the district council on behalf of the town council to be able to erect some signage, or small as it was, directional signage to get towards the Avalon Marshes. So I used this parish online, and I submitted this with the planning application. And the legend on this one is the red dots is where I wanted to place a very simple signage, directional signage for people to get on that route. So again, it's just what you use it for. And in this case, it was helpful. We got the consent, the signs are up, and the cycle path's being used. Okay, and again, a line. This is the route of our mayor's Sunday, which won't be happening this year, but our mayor, every year the new mayor has a church service and then a jamboree in the hall. Our last year's mayor, because the church in St. John's in Glastonbury was closed for refurbishment, we had to use the other church, St. Benedict's. So that is the route that the mayor's entourage was taking. I could use that by sending it over with our license application to the district council to show that where we were wanting to parade on the day of the Mayor's Sunday. And the next one, which if I was to overlay those, and that's clearly what I would have done if it was on Parish Online rather than on a PowerPoint, if I overlay it to that one, that is the extent of the road closure that I would have to implement to ensure that the safety of all that were involved in the Mayor's Sunday. So from the top of the High Street right back to the roundabout on Street Road, and from the St. Benedict's School. So if I go back one, that's the specifics of the route. That's the specifics of the road closure to allow the safe passage of the route. Again, just putting that in with a planning application, or sorry, a license application for road closure, just helps them enormously. And if you recall, the last time we had a Parish Online seminar, what I'd love to be able to do is be able to place around here the specific signage which states, because you have to do that with a road closure application, the signage which states where you're going to be putting directional signage, where you're going to be putting road close signage, where you're going to be putting marshals, all the things that go with that. And that's a piece of work that I'm still learning. But I'm just showing you the sort of things I've been able to do with it. This one here, you'll recognize this one, Greg, going out towards your country. That's my commute to work when I come across the moor. And I have frequently found fly tipping out there. So I send this as a link to my concerns. It has changed now, District Council, because you can pinpoint it on a map yourself. I did this about 6 months ago. But that's where I had found heaps of tyres dumped out on the moor. And you just send that down the line with an email to the respective officer at the district council, and you say, this is where there's fly tipping. No ambiguity, that's where it is. And they can print it off, give it to the driver, and within 24 hours, the whole thing was sorted out. I think that's probably the last one. So Graham, I've flown through it, but just to link back through, there's a few examples of dots. There's an example of lineage, those there, dots again, and there's an example of the polygon where you're doing the areas. The great thing with the area, can't do it on here because I'm on a PowerPoint, but if I wanted to know the specific, how much that land mass was, I just got to click on that, and that would come all the dimensions of its square hectareage or acreage, and you know, you can add so many overlayers to it. It's an incredible piece of kit. And I'll add, just before I finish, how I have had this in our system now for say 2 years plus, and how I have found the Parish Online team to be incredibly helpful. And I think they've evolved at the same time I'm involved, and they're going faster than me, I hasten to add, but they've never shied away from answering the queries and questions I've raised with them, and I find them incredibly helpful. So I'll stop there, Graham. Is that okay?
I think it's the most useful part of the whole day, Gerard. Thank you very much. It's wonderful.
So I'll come out of that, I think. How do I come out of that?
So I think well, you can pass the control back to me if you like, but I think actually,
stop there. There you are.
I don't have any much more there. Thank you. To show people. The next item on the agenda was using Parish Online for council meetings, but I think we've actually covered it, that basically anywhere that has a screen that's large enough for everybody to see, which I think is becoming, I hope it's becoming the norm, this makes all the difference, because as has been said several times, putting it up and being able to layer in zones of scientific interest or grade 2 housing or whatever that you have that is applicable to a particular topic of conversation, whether it be a planning application or a license application, any of the things that Gerard was showing. It's fabulous to have the whole council being able to look at the same picture and you can all see the same thing. So I used to think that was Lisa's job, but I've now been told it's going to be mine. So but thank you for that. Now, I don't have anything else specific on today's agenda. I thought we should keep things loose. I'm very happy to ask people to make any comments or questions or what they'd like to do next or whatever. What suggestions for more helpful next time? We've got Chris calling.
Yeah, I just wondered what people use to show people at parish council meetings to display the maps on. Because I'm thinking of, we're building a new village hall, and I'm thinking of getting one of these 72-inch TVs for doing it. What do people think of that idea?
Greg?
We've literally during lockdown installed a projector and a screen in our meeting room at the village hall, so that we'll be using that. And the thing that we'll be adding very shortly is a camera, so that we can still be partially online, not online, depending on how people want to attend the meetings. But currently we're using share screen in Zoom, exactly like you've done this afternoon. And I'm sat here with all the documents on my computer, just shoving the right one on to the display at the right time, so that people know where we're at, and that works really well. But the downside of it is that, as pointed out earlier, you're restricted on the number of faces you can see, so you can't always see who's got their hand raised, so the chair has to focus on that.
As isn't that big a council, it's smaller than this group.
But we've only got 7.
And we've got 10.
Yeah. So it's still, but it's still tricky to keep an eye on them all, especially as we've got one who phones in. He's usually in a field with his cows. That works well.
Graham, can I make a suggestion, if I may, or ask a question? If we were to do another one of these, and I rather hope we will, might somebody have a presentation like I've just given, but on the asset register? Because I'd be interested to see how a parish or a town are dealing with that.
Sure, yeah, I'd be. Someone was just doing an asset register when we.
That's great, I think.
Yeah, no, we've been. I'm part way through. We, as an example, last month we agreed to install a new dog bin, so I was able to put the new dog bin on the map, print off the PDF file for the clerk to send in to the district council to get their approval about where the bin was going to go. And again, it's just an example of how it works. And it was, literally I did it during the meeting because we all agreed this is where it's gone, and I'd done it, straight away.
What I've found is that the exercise really is getting stuff out of a musty old filing cabinet where only one person can get to it, and only when that person happens to be working for the council. And putting it online where it's available to everybody whenever they want it. Which does bring me to the one last item I wanted to mention, which was the question that we touched on earlier with Natalie, which is having multiple users with access to Parish Online. So when you buy your copy of Parish Online, you get one license, but you're enabled to allocate that to any number of users. So what I've done in Long Sutton is created an account called Parish Council, so that anybody who's on the Parish Council can be given the password and they can come in and see what we've done. And the other most crucial thing for that has been that I find an invaluable tool in Parish Online is the ability to do bookmarks. And with a bookmark, you can instantly call up the correct scale, the screen, and the correct layers for the topic that you want to cover. But the bookmarks are very much individual to the person who set them up, so you can't share them with other people. But if I log on as the Parish Council and create my bismarks, then everybody else, sorry, my bookmarks, then everyone else can see them as well. So I just mentioned that in passing for anybody, that there's no limit to the number of accounts you can open up. And if you have an account for multiple people, they can all come on at the same time with that account. So that's just a passing thought on how I find that you're getting the information out of an inaccessible filing cabinet onto an electronic system where everybody can access it. Yes, Greg.
Yeah, not quite the dusty filing cabinet, but fortunately for us, our asset register is only 2 sides of A4 on an Excel spreadsheet. The problem I've got is my biggest issue is play equipment. I've got no idea what a number is, so I've had to sort of reinvent that, but that's worked quite well. But in terms of accounts, we've only got 7 councillors. Each councillor's got their own account, and what we've done is restricted who can do what, because we didn't want the unintended councillor in there deleting half the stuff by mistake. So most of them can view, and there's a couple of us who can edit, which is really me and the guy who does all the allotment work.
Right. Well, I think what I was finding from this dusty filing cabinet, for instance, was certainly didn't know where the allotments were, and then finding them involved going back to a piece of paper that said from a survey of 1902, which was really helpful. But that sort of thing was great to see. And then we came across, or at least I didn't, but Lisa came across pieces of paper that showed what had been land belonging to the council that was then sold off. And it became rather exciting because the farmer bought it, but it wasn't the field that he wanted, but he wanted to be able to swap it for another field in Glastonbury. And this was all documented, and I think quite fascinating in terms of historical records and what gone on. And then there was an ex-naval officer down the road who told me that when he bought his farm, that field had belonged to the farm, but he wasn't able to afford it, which is why it became available for someone else to buy it. And it was just interesting that all this was not going to have come out unless we tried shifting stuff from the filing cabinet to the electronic record. And I just think that most parish councils probably have the issue that somebody mentioned earlier, that they just had no idea where everything is and there was no easy access to it. But to me, it makes a lot of sense to make it up to date electronically nowadays. Okay, this is the session now where I ask if anyone has any other business. It looks like, Peter, are you looking about to say, or are you just sort of... Yes.
We're not using it yet at all. We haven't got it. We've got to persuade our councillors to invest in it.
Right.
I'm trying to establish just how good it is and to the best way of putting that forward. And from the people that have been talking today, it's invaluable by the sound of it.
I'd like to say that Ilminster just got a new deputy clerk and a new town clerk, and we've just agreed to go to Parish Online, but of course it's about 3 years too late for me as the chairman of a neighbourhood plan group, because all the stuff that we've done, which is on base paper, and also all the maps that we've got, are all now what I could have done, or we could have done. And I realise that what we've got is a licence for our deputy town clerk. I assume that she can then let me have at least one access to it, and whoever, and we need to sell it to the town council as well, make them aware of what it's all about. How did you do that?
Well, in the case of Long Sutton, I just showed it to Lisa, and she was bowled over straight away. She could see how it would save her a lot of time.
As a clerk, yeah, as a clerk. But I mean, I'm talking about the whole of the council. We've agreed. We've gone on Parish Online, but none of the councillors know anything about it at the moment. Really don't understand it, I don't think.
What seems to work, as far as I can see, is the question of money. And the way that we presented it was that Parish Online comes at no charge if your insurance for the council is put through BHIB. And we were able to persuade BHIB that their initial quotation could do with some reviewing, and they agreed to review their quotation to us, so that they came in at the bottom end of the quotes for our renewed insurance policy. And then it was a simple case to say to the council as a whole that not only is this a low insurance quote, but also we get the use of Parish Online as well. And from the point of view of the insurance companies, they find that it's worth their while to buy these licenses, because the councils that have got their assets probably properly registered in an electronic form, whereby you can also record when those things which have to be inspected have been inspected, and you've got a trail of records showing that you have indeed been using proper governance, then that is well worth it to the insurance company to pay for the license, because they save so much money by not having to pay out on your faults.
What was the name of that insurance company, Graham?
BHIB. They're not actually an insurance company themselves, they're a broker, but they do all the insurance for a lot of the councils across the country. And as I said, if you twist their arm, they will make sure that they can give you a good quote. And I think I have a suspicion that their insurance company is Aviva, because I seem to remember a conversation in which they said one of the reasons for their quote being inaccurate the first time was that Aviva had suddenly changed the specs halfway through. So I think they probably as a broker have access to any number of insurance companies, but certainly Aviva is a big name.
That's how I sold it to Hewish Episcopi, was we reviewed our insurance provision. And I don't think the parish council understand the significance of this. Does come as part of the package. I'm going to try and demonstrate to them. But there's one or two councillors that liked the idea of the online facility, if you like, and that swayed them into going with this particular insurance company when we reviewed the provision this year.
Okay, would anyone else like to raise any points, please?
Yeah. Lorna from Burnham-on-Sea. We found it invaluable because we've recently had to introduce a temporary one-way system and pedestrianisation of the high street to enable social distancing when the high street reopens. And we've been able to find out how many properties we need to do a mail shot to, and we've been able to help district and county produce a map of the one-way system throughout the town, and we've just found it invaluable doing that.
Fantastic, great. Anyone else? Sorry, Andrew, you were raising your hand.
Yeah, can I go back to the earlier issue of a public web? I'm one of the guinea pigs for this thing at the moment, in that what I want to do is to make we're mapping the natural environment, and I want to be able to put this on a public website so that anybody who wants to click on a particular environment, say a pond or something like that, can click on it and then get all the details of that particular environment. At the moment, they're only halfway there. You cannot, at the moment, get any of the details behind what you see on the map just by clicking on it. But they are working on that. So eventually, I hope that we'll get something like Google Maps, for example, where you can click on things and get a lot of details, including photographs or whatever is stored there. It's happening, but it's happening. I don't know how quick they will be. At the moment, there are issues, as far as I can see, that on an online map, the sort of instructions for what you have to do on the online map take up a very large space and cover most of the map. And I think they're going to sort that one out. But I'll keep in contact with everyone as this develops.
Good, thank you. Let me just end by saying then that I'm sorry, I just noticed a hand raised by Peter. Peter, want to go ahead?
Yeah. Is there a demo video or something, or a website we can log on to show councillors with this one?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for, yeah.
Because the problem we've got within our parish is that the insurance company you mentioned wouldn't give us the flood risk cover that we need on one of our biggest buildings.
I've got some examples of PowerPoints that Parish Online themselves have used in making presentations. Very happy to share those with you. And I was on the point of, sorry, Greg, you got something?
Yeah. On YouTube, their Parish Online publish their webinars. So that's how I learned how to use it, by just going through their webinars. And if you start at the beginning, it's very useful. It shows you how to do stuff, and it would really answer the needs there, because you'd get somebody talking you through it.
Peter, I have actually added all those webinars to the PUGS website too, so you've got lots of choices for going there.
Can you give us a PUGS web address?
parish-online.co.uk. I will be sending out to everybody after this meeting a document that lists all these things we discussed about, and the links you can find, where you can find stuff. And I'll try and add as much as possible, plus a copy of the recording to the PUGS website. And let me just finish by saying that I'm very happy to help anybody with demonstration days. I sort of tend to run those about once a month. And for anybody who's looking to see either what the system is capable of doing or learning how to do a specific thing with the system, they all get covered in demonstration days. So if you're interested and you'd like to have one, then please just let me know. John.
Right. Yeah, Graham. Well, I think what we were asking for was the web address for the PUGS website.
Oh, I'm sorry. That will be in the document I send around afterwards. So I can give it to you now if you're interested. Bear with me.
That's probably better if I wait till afterwards. I just got a copy and paste then.
I think so, yes. So I thank you all very much for your time and your interest and your help, and I'm very grateful to you, and I hope that you found it interesting and rewarding. And I look forward to doing it again, hopefully with an increasing number of people as the word spreads that this is a useful system.
Yeah, thank you very much, Graham. It's been helpful.
It's been great to have you.
To hear other people's stories as well and examples. Thank you, Gerard, for your Glastonbury example.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Yeah, it was a really helpful run around, Gerard. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care,
Thanks
everybody.
all.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Thanks, Graham. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.